the wet, rich rot of loam-filled forests, the spongy softness of frayed cedar wood, covered in moss, toadstools, and musk of a late autumn sun, dappled and mottled through brindled branches, leaves of green, yellow, and gold, giving up their lives on high to carpet the damp forest floor, digging into the humus with nail, claw, pad, and beak. Rust-red cedar, sour yellow hemlock, silver glint in the fading light of day, last spark of light on a needle, a cone, a feather, a spot of fur. Indwelling of Creation is a mixed fiber art piece made of reused remnants of fabric and second-hand materials. It combines a variety of needlework styles, including Japanese sasco, slow stitching, and embroidery. I work with repurposed materials and gather most of my supplies at a local thrift store. I save fragments and scraps from sewing projects and the alteration of clothing to use in art pieces. Very little, if any, of my fiber art supplies are purchased new. I do this with the conscious intention of decreasing my impact on the environment in relationship to consumer goods. For this project, I chose fabrics that contain elements of nature and creation, including leaves, plants, and bird motifs. Sasco sewing is a traditional Japanese sewing practice which dates from the 17th century, when fabrics available to peasants were thin cottons and linens. Sasco means little stabbings or little piercings. By taking cotton thread, often white, and using a plain running stitch on the fabric, often dyed with indigo, people would layer the thin fabrics into thicker, warmer material, which was both stronger and decorative. Sasco is now used as a method to add decorative styling to clothing, sometimes to mend, and sometimes to simply add beauty. I use it here in recognition of the practices of mending and strengthening the clothing and material we own, rather than replacing it with new. The act of creating sasco, stitching by hand, is part of a growing movement called slow stitching, which is, as the name suggests, the act of stitching fabric slowly. Slowly stitching is a spiritual practice, a form of active meditation where the process matters more than the final product. To engage in slow stitching means to focus your intention on each individual stitch, to give it your full and undivided attention. For me, each stitch becomes a prayer, a moment of reflection, an opportunity to say a word of thanks or send out a blessing as I sew. As a person with a lived experience of mental illness, including OCD, slow stitching is an outlet, and as the French-American artist Louise Bourgeois has been quoted, the act of sewing is the process of emotional repair. Stitching soothes and heals a part of my soul. In the poem Fragments by Jan Richardson, she says this: "And so we take the ragged fragments, the patches of darkness that give the shape to the light, the scraps of desires unslacked or realized, the memories of spaces of blessing, of pain. And so we gather the scattered pieces, the hopes we carry, fractured or whole, the struggles of birthing, exhausted, elated, the places of welcome that bring the healing and life. And so we lay them at the threshold, God. We bid you hold them, bless them, use them. Ask you to tend them, mend them, transform them, to keep us warm, make us whole, and send us forth. I ask the same for this piece. I lay it at the threshold and bid a blessing of transformation, warmth, and wholeness. In the center of this piece are embroidered figures loosely based on an Italian fresco in Vercelli, Italy, painted by an unknown artist around 1450. It shows the baby Jesus being held by Mary, who in turn is being held by her mother, Anne. It is an image of perichoresis, a term first used by the Cappadocian Fathers in the 4th century. Perichoresis can be translated as rotation or a dancing wheel. And symbols like the Celtic knot with 3 leaves, a shamrock, or the triple spiral can all be visual representations of perichoresis. The 3 are separate, yet connected without confusion. Pamela Cooper-Wright, in her books Braided, Selves, and Many Voices, uses this language for the Trinity and perichoresis. God as creative perfusion, God as incarnational desire, and God as living inspiration. These 3 names also inspired this creative work. God as creative perfusion expresses the limitless and immense diversity of creation, the fingertips of God touching all flesh, all life. God becomes present in the messy, muddy, conflicted chaos of creation, not as a cosmic organizer, but as a reveler in all that creation has to offer. God as incarnational desire is God deep in the blood and bones of creation, willingly present in all life, all love, all suffering, all death, and all rebirth that comes out of death. Be it the death of a fly to feed a spider, the death of a mouse to feed an eagle, be it the molds and fungus decaying plants back into soil, be it Jesus suffering on the cross. God is vulnerable and suffers. God is wounded, just like us. God as living inspiration is breath, power, wind, and breathing yet again. We breathe in and out and share the world with all breathing things. Our breath mingles with the breath of others. We breathe in others just as they breathe in us. Living inspiration is living spirit, breathing, whispering, sparking, echoing in the liminal spaces between us. This is God as deep incarnation with the world and the cosmos. Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century mystic, envisioned the cosmos as an egg contained within the womb of God. Pamela Cooper-Wright says, the Trinity is then a spacious room, even a matrix or womb, in which multiple metaphors can flourish, honoring simultaneously the relational and multiplicity of God. The Trinity as deep incarnation is grounded, surrounded, infused with communion, equality, and union. There are 3 divine persons dwelling within one, drawing life from each other and existing as they do, because of their relationship to one another. God is a being in relationship. A parent because of the child, a child because of the parent, and spirit dwelling between them. Just as I am a parent because of my child, a sister because of my siblings, and a child because of my parents. I chose the feminine image of perichoresis because of the word indwelling. When a woman is born, she has within her all the eggs she'll ever have for children, already created, which means I had the cell that would one day become my son already within me at birth. Prior to my birth, while still in my mother's womb, I had that cell already created. So there was a time when both myself and my child indwelled in my mother. We were all connected, all together, yet completely separate. We are three in one. We all indwell within creation. We are interconnected with nature and the deep incarnation of God in all flesh, in all the cosmos. I wanted this creative piece to reflect this both with the materials used, the styles of creation, and the imagery present. In my spiritual sight, I saw the bees in the apple harvest. I saw the snail slide across the bunchberry and salal. I saw the orange fungus creep between the fibers of the rotting to burst into being. I saw the solitary wren trip across the ferns, hopping and alighting on green and silver tips of life, quiet and soft in the forest. I put my hand down on the damp, and I feel the worms wrinkle deep, and the pillbugs roll beside the starflowers and fairy bells. My fingers tangle in the vines as I indwell in the forest. My body slips into the wood and into the earth. My hair flows in the wild breeze. Ravens rest on my branches, arms. I am me in the woods. I am the woods in me. I am the many one in creation.